All right, I will say hello and welcome back to another episode of All About Balance. And today I am joined by artist extraordinaire, Mr. Ryan Roadkill. Ryan, how's it going, my friend?
Hey, good. Yourself?
Yes, all right, mate. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, how's things been, mate? You know what I mean? It's been a bit of a crazy time.
Yeah, I mean the last year for everyone's been absolutely mad, hasn't it? But I mean, touch wood. Fortunately for me, it's actually been quite busy. Um, so yeah, I've been really lucky, and I've managed to keep things going. Not so much on like my personal art side, but more on client work and stuff.
Mhm.
Has kept me tied over. So yeah.
I guess probably what I should preface, or what you should preface actually, is before we carry on, is tell people what you actually do, because I've gallivanted off into the ether of conversation without actually letting you introduce yourself properly.
Well, essentially, I draw pictures for a
Yeah.
living. That's pretty much it. I sort of split my time between being a commercial illustrator, so working for clients on projects, like maybe advertising campaigns, or um, uh, I just finished up a job where I sort of worked on a animated video, and yeah, working on a commercial basis like that, where the client has a project and then they get me on board to illustrate. And then the other 50% of my time that I split up into is my personal artwork, where I create my own prints and that sort of stuff. Yeah.
So, I mean, you've probably been asked this question 1,000 times, but it interests me, so I'm going to ask it anyway, and I apologize in advance. Obviously the professional work is whatever, and I know you probably can't talk too much in detail about that stuff, but your personal stuff, how do you shape your personal artwork? How does that come about?
What, in terms of how I actually produce it and
Yeah, I mean, sort of the whole process interests me, frankly, because I've had a couple of tattoo artists on. I've spoken to them, and I asked the question, like, how do you allow the things that are in your soul to come out through the pen? And I've had varying answers from various people. So I guess that's my question primarily.
Right. So, like for me, I always try and base it around just sketching all the time. Just like have sketchbooks and just try and fill them with just whatever is in your head. Whether it's just a little doodle or it might be something that you've seen, and then you try and put that down on paper and just like elaborate on it and build on it in a sketchbook. But I think that's where the best work for me comes from. Like I'll just try and sketch away on an evening, and then I might look at those sketches, like just flick through a sketchbook. Like I've been known to do it, like maybe something that I've drawn down like 2 years ago, and then I just flick back through and I'm like, oh shit, yeah, like that's pretty good. Like I can in the headspace to actually develop it into something else back then. But like now I'm like, oh yeah, right, I know what I can do with that. Yeah, and that's the sort of best way for me to do the art side of things, because obviously with the client work, there's a brief behind like probably 90% of it. So it's very much like the client drives that. And I don't get that same process of just putting out whatever I want to on paper. So yeah, I think sketching stuff is like a really good start process. Then I'll take the concept and sort of develop it a bit further. And one of the things about like my style of work, I really like try and do everything like brush and ink. So I'll sorry, my printer's just kicking off next to us here.
That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, I'll try and do things with brush and ink. So it sort of is like a traditional way of sort of inking out, rather than going to pen or doing it digitally. I'll try and do everything by hand. And then depending whether it's going to be a painting, I might paint it. It might have a different process. If it's going to be digital work or a screen print, I might end up digitally coloring some things. And other times, it really just depends how I'm feeling. I might just paint the whole thing start to finish.
think this is, and there's a couple of things that are coming through that I find really intriguing, and it's kind of, it's almost the philosophy of your artwork, right? There's something really interesting from the couple of artists that I've spoken to, and generally I grill the tattoo artists that I have get tattoos from as well. It's like, it almost feels like you're detached from your artwork in that it takes on its own entity, it becomes its own thing, whereas actually, and you're merely just the medium in which the limbs are going through. Like, is that what happens with you? Like, how, because you spoke there about your style, right? And for people that don't know, look up here, that's Brian's style there. We're fortunate enough to have one of your prints, and it's very unique to yourself, frankly. That's what I determine anyway. Like, is that, how much of that is you and how much of that is the artwork as an entity?
I don't know. I guess like it's probably maybe there's a secret entity inside of us that's trying to come out. No, I think that probably happens as you build up that style and build up more work and build up a portfolio of work that you can look at it and be like, oh, this is taking on its own thing now. I'm not really conscious of anything when I'm doing it. It's just like become that hammered in style that I always try and produce. And I find
that's fucking crazy though. You don't find that's crazy? You're not conscious when you're doing something. That's nuts, surely.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's like therapeutic though, isn't it? So you just get in the zone and just work away.
I think that speaks to a level of mastery for me, because there's obviously various stages of skill-based learning, and art is obviously very much so a skill, right? There are very few people, I think, that pick up a pencil or a pen or a brush and just do the thing perfectly, right?
Yeah.
In whatever medium that they choose. But for you to reach a level where you're in quote unquote a flow state, right? You're just doing the thing. That to me speaks of a level of expertise where you're almost taking the wheel off. But it just, for me, it doesn't make any sense for somebody to be able to produce the level of work that you're able to produce that, but not do so consciously. That makes no fucking sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah. You mean like not thinking about what your hand's doing all the time?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely.
I guess that's just practice though, isn't it? Because there was probably a time like years and years and years ago where I was thinking, a lot. And I think by thinking about it and seeing what other people are doing and just practicing it, then you do come up with your own style, even if it's subconsciously. And it's not till you look back at old work, you're like, oh shit, I can see that that style developing,
Yeah.
And I guess if you just become so practiced at something, it's just second nature. Like, it's like when I ride a motorbike and stuff, I might not have been on one for a while, but you get back on and like everything, it's just muscle memory. It's all just drilled into you.
Yeah.
It's the same with doing that, it's like, I guess it's like muscle memory. It's just, exactly what you're doing. That coordination between your brain and your hand is just like, it's there.
And whatever this mysterious entity is that's inside of you that's trying to get out.
Like channeling through us, yeah.
And I was gonna ask, like, do you ever look back at the work that you've produced? Like, you've mentioned a few times there that to determine the style that you have, you generally look back and you say, oh fuck me, like actually throughout the last 10 years of me doing this, there's clearly been a repetition of style. Like, do you feel, or do you often look back at work that you've done and almost notice the change in you as a human, right? The progression in you as a human as you've gotten older?
Yeah, I see. Like you just see not only your work development, but your ideas and stuff change, and like I guess maybe like what state you're in, what's going on in your life and stuff at the time. You can probably look back and see all that as well. But I look back at a lot of work and I just think, oh man, like I would approach that completely differently now. Because work I did like 10 years ago, I'm probably like a totally different person now.
Yeah, I find that is a really, it's almost a really beautiful monologue in a sense, right? Because what I take from one of your pieces is obviously entirely different to potentially what you meant by that piece or what you were trying to convey or whatever the mysterious chimp inside your head was trying to convey. But I feel that's something that always interests me drastically, is the intention at which you put behind your work and how that relates to you in 5, 10, 15, 25 years, right? Because I feel like, and maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong, but from the people that I've spoken to, it feels like in a lot of ways being an artist is quite a lonely endeavor, right? Because it's literally just you and the medium.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And like, yeah, there's no one else to blame if you don't think you're doing it right. Yeah, it is just you and the medium, and quite a bit of isolation. Yeah, and you have to just knuckle down and just work through it. If something's not working, like, yeah, there's no one else to blame. You just got to like work your way through. Yeah.
How do you cope with that? Because essentially what you're saying here, at least what I'm interpreting, is that you're faced with your raw self all of the time. Because returning on that canvas or that piece of paper or whatever it is that you're using, the skateboard behind you, let's just say, you know, if phenomenal, by the way, but you know, when you're faced with that, you're looking entirely into your own self. As you say, there's nobody else to blame if the thing's going well or it's not going well, or if your idea isn't progressing as you want it to, or it's not developing, or whatever it is. Like, how do you feel more in tune with, I guess, who you are, who you perceive yourself to be, than the regular person through your artistic endeavors?
I don't know. It's a good question. I guess like I try and build this character up that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, like a lot of my work's like sort of, I don't know, like anti-hero sort of characters, and I don't know, like battle between bad and good. But I always try and leave it open to the viewer to decide like what's going on in a scene. Like that one behind you, like you don't know what's going on there. Like someone's chasing someone, but yeah, you don't really know what's going on. So I always try and just leave it up to the viewer to sort of decide. Yeah. But in terms of, you were saying, is it a different character? Yeah. It's like, yeah, I think I probably take on a different personality through the work.
See, I find that fascinating. That's fascinating to me. Really, really fascinating, because you know it's almost deemed negative if let's say me and you were walking down the street, right, and we bumped into someone and we were just meeting them or whatever, and they were like, oh, like, I'm playing an alter ego at the minute, right, this isn't my real self. You probably look at them like, what the fuck are you talking about, right? But when somebody in the sphere of the arts can say, well, actually, I just adopt a different person, it's not me that puts this work out, it's deemed to be totally natural.
Yeah, totally. I think all art is like that, though, isn't it? Like all the different genres of art, you know, like performers and stuff. Like loads of them have different identities, and I guess it's just an outlet for that, isn't it?
So, if you had to describe that alternate person that you are when you work, how would you do that? I know that's probably a really difficult question. It's probably something you've never been asked, but
I've never really thought about it. It's just you're bringing it out now, but I don't know. Like, definitely sort of the not downtrodden, but like sort of just not the hero you'd expect. You know, they're a bit of a like the characters that I build in my work are sort of the bad good guys. I always used to like play with like, oh well, what identity is bad or good, you know, like, yeah, I just play on that, you know, like who's right, who's wrong, what's good, what's bad. Yeah, because in a lot of my work's like inspired by sort of the heyday of the automobile, and because I think we're sort of heading to the last days of internal combustion.
Absolutely.
I always try and like have it that's really like 99% what my work's based around in some round way. So it's more about like a nod to those nostalgic sort of times, and like I'm into like motorcycles and stuff, and I always have been since I was a kid, and like I think all that technology is moving forward for the better, but when you look back in like the 50s and 60s, like that's like just such a good era for transportation and like all its forms. So yeah, I always try and like hark back to that sort of time somehow, even though it might not be like really obvious in the work, but that's always like swirling around in my head somewhere, you know. So yeah, maybe it's more about that identity coming through. Yeah,
So when
maybe
you
it's
just,
past life.
I was going to say, yeah, maybe it is a past life, but you touched on there that you said it was such a good era, 50s and 60s for transportation. Like, what do you mean by good? How do you determine what a good era for transportation is?
Well, yeah, what's good or bad, I guess.
Right.
Well, for me, I don't know, just the nostalgic sort of sense of, I guess motorbikes were sort of in their prime then. Then really they were just like totally raw, and I was going to say there was maybe more community built around them, but I think now more than ever there's more community built around motorcycles and stuff. But I guess it was like more pioneering sort of time. But then when you think about that as well, like modern motorcycles, you know, they perform so much better than those old bikes. I don't know, like have you ever seen On Any Sunday?
I've not seen that. What is that? Tell me.
It's like an iconic Bruce Brown film, like about, it's got Steve McQueen in. It's just about motorcycles, like what people do on a weekend on their motorcycles, essentially. And it's just, you should watch it because like opening scenes are just so amazing. They're just like flying around on beaches on motorbikes, like, yeah, and that's what is in my head, and probably in so many people's heads, actually, motorcyclists' heads. But that's what's in my head when I'm sort of creating a lot of my artwork. Just like I don't know, like a sense of freedom and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Even though I don't think you're that free. In fact, that's probably like one of the things that I like about the 50s and 60s of motorcycles. So I think it probably was freedom then. I think now it's not so much. Just because the roads are probably a lot more dangerous here now, and you're policed a lot more, and you're observed all the time. And like some of the things I also build into my work is like I started touching on, maybe not so much, but in the future works I will a bit more. It's just like the constant surveillance of things, which, you know, like that's just like something that's going to happen. You know, you can't get away from that now. But like that piece of work behind you, I was sort of thinking about that then as well, because like I think on yours, does it say "We'll get you, Roadkill"?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's like, it's just that ominous person's like catching up to that motorcyclist in the car, and it's like, well, what is even going on there? You don't know, but like someone's been following him. And
so surveillance, you find, is a topic that rolls around in your head quite a lot, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's bad or good. Like I really don't have a solid opinion on it yet. But yeah, I mean, like you just hear about, you just surveilled all the time, even just by how much you end off looking at Instagram and stuff. You know, we're giving everyone like these excuses to just follow us even more and more and more. You know, like you're just tied to your phone constantly, and it's constantly picking up information on you, where you are, what you look at, what you like, who your friends are. I don't think we'll ever live. Well, no, we haven't ever lived in an age like that.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? Instagram.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
And it's you have to kind of look at it with it's artwork, frankly, right? When you nail it down to the barest of bones, Instagram is a depiction of what humanity wants and doesn't want, all in one little 50 meg app, right?
Yeah.
Because as you rightly say, you push yourself through a sphere that makes more people want to follow you, which means you push more of yourself out through that same sphere, and it goes round and round in circles. Whereas in the same vein, by pushing yourself out to that sphere, you're almost emptying out what it is to be a self in the same vein. And that was something I was going to ask you, whether we got to it or not, is, and I do want to go back to the surveillance thing, because I think that's a really interesting topic, because I work in IT, so I kind of have more of an inside view on this than maybe some people. But
yeah,
is that you're an artist, right? And as you've rightly said, a lot of your time is spent in isolation creating work, whether that be commercial or personal. You're also in an era where a lot of your artwork, I mean, maybe this is an assumption, but a lot of your artwork sales comes from mediums like Instagram.
mm-hmm.
How do you balance spending most of your time in isolation to then going to literally the most extreme of opposites, where thousands, if not millions of people can interact with you at a second's notice?
Yeah, I know. Well, at the moment, I'm pretty bad at putting stuff out through Instagram, just because I find like there isn't, you're either doing one or the other, you're either doing your work or you're on Instagram putting stuff out there. So it is pretty hard to find that balance. But yeah, I mean, like, I am on my own all the time. I actually got rid of my studio in April, and which like came in hindsight, it was a pretty good time to get rid of it.
Yeah.
I was looking for somewhere else, but I decided, well, let's not. So yeah, I went from like being in a studio with other people where you can talk through stuff to just coming home, and like for nearly a year now, I had this room in my house, like, which is set up as like a mini studio I work in. So yeah, like you're going from being isolated in your head, trying to put everything down on paper, and then going out to all those followers on Instagram. Really, like, the best way to do it would be to document the process when I'm on my own a bit more and put it out, and then maybe that would bridge that gap a little bit more from going like nothing to like full on. But yeah, like you said before, like, sell so much work through Instagram. I think I've got a career because of Instagram, to be honest. There's so many people out there who I know have careers because of Instagram. It's sort of like, you have to use it. Well, I feel like I have to. I hate it sometimes. I absolutely hate it, and I hate feeling like I have to put stuff on there all the time. And I really hate putting up stuff that isn't worthwhile putting up. But like, you feel pressured that you have to document stuff, and I'm like, why did I even bother putting that up there? But yeah, it's like a catch-22. Like, you really need it.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I wanted, that sort of just jumped out to me then, is you said, well, maybe I should document more of the process of when I'm here on my own, right? But that feels very sacred to me, right? That those moments when you're on your own for 5, 6, 7 hours, whatever it is, just going through the motions of being either you or the alter ego you, and channeling whatever is in your head at that moment through your work. Like, surely you don't want the interruption of 100,000 people or 1,000 people or however many thousands of people look at your stories or your posts or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you also don't kind of want to encroach on that space, like, I'm just going to set up a camera here and I'll do a time lapse of today's studio session. But then you're going to be subconsciously or consciously noticing that your behavior is being documented. You're almost surveying yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're totally right. I was going to say, like, the best way to do it would probably just put a camera in that is just watching us all the time. But
do you want to do that, really?
Controlling your own surveillance, aren't you? Yeah, it's a funny one, really. It is. I feel like sometimes I think, like, do people even care, like, what the process is?
Interesting.
It's hard because, like, really, it's boring to me. Like, it's not boring, but it's just I would think other people would think it was boring because it's just dragging a brush, and, like, repeatedly dragging it and methodically just like painting. But I guess people probably. I mean, the videos I put up, people like the process, but then, yeah, like you said, you want to let all those people in on the process all the time, because you will no doubt. Like I've done like a couple of live process videos, and you change how you do stuff. Like you're constantly aware that there's people there. Like you're not producing it yourself. I'd rather just produce the work, tell people it's coming, and then there's the finished product. Yeah. Everyone can see it.
I think, to be honest, that's the way it should be in a way, because everyone always, I'm saying everyone being me, right? Like I would love to see what's under the hood of everything, right? That's just my personality. I like to see the way that things work. So whether that be like, I want to see the team talks of a football game at halftime, like I want to know what happens in there, or whether it's a server, right, that I work on at work, I'm like, okay, so what's happening here? I want to know how that works. Or for you, like I asked the questions there because I wanted to just cut your head open and have a look inside and see what's going on, right? I'm like, how do you do this? What's this? How's this like? What is it? How does this work, right? But in the same vein, there's something very attractive about not knowing, right? That's one of the beauties of being a human, is that you don't know. And I think it brings to the allure of the artwork, right? Because you produce something and people are like, oh, he's definitely done that on a computer. Whereas actually you've sat at home for 10 hours and cracked this thing out.
Yeah.
And then people just determine it to be.
Yeah. And like, I think nowadays as well, like there's so much information out there. Like you can like learn to do anything you want, like sat at home. You can do anything. There's like an abundance of information. Whereas like no one taught me my process at all. Like I didn't read about it. I just completely self-taught and worked out what worked and how it would be different this way, how it would be different that way, and not actually mimic other styles. So I think it is good to just produce the work and then just put it out with people. And anyway, like viewing I try to like keep an air of mystery about the work, about what's going on in the scene. But also maybe like part of that is like, oh, well, how did he produce that? Because they say like, well, art's meant to ask more questions than it, answers. So there's another question at the roster, like how did he actually produce that?
But I think it's right because, it's, as you say, just looping slightly back to surveillance, we're in an era where people expect to know.
Yeah.
Right? They don't expect privacy to be a thing as much anymore as they did even 10 years ago, right? Let's say when I was 17, I expected certain things to be private. Whereas now, even I know, looking back, I'm like, oh, okay, the world's a different place. Like the world is a very, very different place. And to your point about doing Instagram lives when you're producing work or whatever it is, you're also aware of the judgment, right?
Oh, yeah, totally, yeah.
If you make a specific movement and you're like, oh, shit, that's a mistake. If it was just you on your own, again, you're faced with just that raw image of yourself and you've got to fix that. Yeah. Whereas there's like, you check your phone, you're like, fuck me, there's 1,000 people watching this. Like,
yeah,
what do I do now?
Bring your A game.
Right. And that, I think some of the best work is when you just do it. Right. And even when there is.
And what I was going to say there was before when I was started, I said like drawing in a sketchbook, just shitty little scribbles. Some of that is just to get an idea out onto paper, even if it's just a quick squiggle, so I can refer back to it later on, so I don't forget it, basically, because I forget so much stuff. Like I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll just have to write ideas down. So really, that's the core of the process. That's where the idea starts, and I guarantee, no one would give a shit. No one would be interested whatsoever in those ideas, but actually they're the core of it. So yeah, like if you do document it, I wouldn't be showing people that because I know it wouldn't appeal to them. But really, that is what I should be showing them.
Absolutely, and that's one of the biggest problems with Instagram, right? That what you've just said in those last two sentences encapsulates everything that's wrong with Instagram. Is actually the beauty, the magic of every piece of work that you've put out could be found in a 15-minute sketch or a 5-minute sketch or a 3-minute sketch or a 45-second sketch in a book.
Yeah, exactly.
Or it could be an idea that you've woken up at 4:30 in the morning, like, fuck me, I've got to write this down. Right?
Yeah.
But then what comes out is this beautifully architected piece of work on whatever medium it is And people don't want to appreciate that it actually came from something that was way more spurious and way more raw, right? Way less edited. But we live in a time now where we're expected to be edited at all times, right?
Yeah. And not only that, you expect to just have everything instantaneously, you know, like no one waits for anything. It's just like, yeah, I want that now.
Yeah.
You know, like people just want everything
Yeah.
straight away. And they wouldn't, yeah. So I think maybe in many ways, like it's best to just produce the work and then just say, right, this is the finished piece.
I mean, the question I would ask you as well is when you create your personal artwork, who are you doing it for, right? Is it for you or is it for everyone else?
Yeah, you should, like, really, like, you can't sort of get away from this thought, but, you know, like a lot of people I've spoken to will like say, you know, you produce the artwork for yourself, like everyone knows that, and you should never think about how sellable it is. But inevitably that's going to come round. You know, you do think sometimes, oh shit, this might just totally flop. But you know, creative freedom's like not having to worry about that. But inevitably, because I sell so much work through Instagram, and that's such a visual format, you do end up thinking, you think, oh shit, like how's this going to be received? When really you shouldn't be thinking about that whatsoever, you know?
I mean, it almost certainly holds you back in some fashion, right?
Yeah, I reckon.
I was going to ask this question before, but I think it's almost pertinent to ask now. Is it's like, do you hold yourself back consciously of certain ideas that you have because maybe they wouldn't be received in the way that you determined to be financially viable?
Yeah, well, yeah, 100%. And partly that is because you know, everything's self-funded, so I have to stump up, you know, maybe like, I don't know, some projects like £2,000 for a print run and stuff. Yeah, so and you don't want to be pissing that up the drain, you know, like so you do think about what's going to sell and stuff, but then also I'm more further down the line now where I'm like, well, I've tested the water on like what works and what doesn't, and I just sort of 90%, maybe 80% just do whatever I want to do, you know. I mean, it's all self-motivated, you know. It's all my artwork is like what I want to do. It's not influenced by other people, but yeah, you know, I might not. It is a big struggle for me actually, like because I was so established in the world of like motorcycles. That's where my first work came from. And I owe so much to like some people in that industry, and nearly all of my work like came from there, you know, like, and I feel like a massive attachment. Plus, so many people see my work with motorcycles in it. Now, like, there'll be a time where maybe I want to transition out of that a little bit more.
Yeah, this is interesting.
It's like bridging that gap. Like, how do you do that transition? Like, you know, I can't just shut it off. Like, someone was telling me like a couple of months ago, they were like, just stop doing it. Like now, just stop it now because you'll never be happy with it. And just do exactly what you want to do. But it's not really as easy as that, is it?
Why not? Why not?
Because it's a. I think people like some people who get in touch with me to do work for them think that, and I think this is rooted in that they see my work through Instagram. I mean, there's a lot of people on there like this, which isn't a bad thing, but they think that maybe it's a part-time gig.
Oh, okay.
But for me, like everything I sell, like pays my bills. Like this is like 100% my, you know, my job, and it has been for like about 7 years now. So I do have to be conscious, you know. Like I can't just like go completely off the wall.
I mean, I kind of disagree with that, to be honest, right? Like, and I'll explain why, right? I think that a lot of the worries that you're speaking about are contained in your head rather than in the populace's head. Let me speak to you as a fan, right? As somebody that appreciates your artwork, I don't give a fuck what you put out, to be honest, because what people follow you for is the style, right? It's not necessarily the content. And the style isn't encapsulated by motorbikes. The style is encapsulated by beautiful color transitions, bold shapes, interesting ideas. It's not determined by motorbikes, right? Okay, maybe your history is steeped heavily in motorbikes, and maybe your personal life is steeped in motorbikes when you get a fucking chance to, right? But that isn't you. And I think I'll relate it to some tattoo artists, right? Have you heard of Jack Connolly? You know who Jack Connolly is?
Yeah, I think so.
So he's an incredible artist, full stop, regardless of whether it's tattoo or just he paints as well, right?
Right.
And I could be misquoting, but if I am, somebody pull me up on it. I remember inquiring about a piece to get done by Jack, and he was like, "Nah, don't do it. I just do this stuff."
Right.
And I'm like, "Okay, cool." That told me two things. One, he's really serious about his work, and two, he doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And if anything, I have more respect for that. I mean, of course, I really want to get tattooed by him, right? But in my head now, I'm thinking, oh, fuck it, I'll just give him a piece of skin and let him do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And I think that pertains to yourself as well, right? Do what you want to do, because generally people are going to buy shit because it's got your name on it and because they appreciate you as a person and you as an artist. I understand that, okay, if somebody comes to you as a commercial gig and is like, Ryan, I want motorbikes, whatever. That's a commercial gig. That is what it is, right? They're paying you for a very specific brief. But when it comes to you, don't hold yourself back at all. Do whatever it is you want to do, because at the end of the day, in the same vein of you saying, oh, well, actually, I have to phase it out gradually because I'll lose people. Well, you may be losing people by not breaking out of that shell and doing what you want to do. You may be not attracting a wider audience because they're like, oh, I don't give a fuck about bikes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You have to be bold and brave, I guess.
And it's not like you haven't been bold and brave before.
Yeah. No, yeah, I know. It's just I think a lot of it comes from that I'm also like I'm these two people. I'm like an artist and a illustrator, and on the illustration side, it's always my style. Yes. But the content's always like, well, can you draw this? I'm like, yeah, of course I can. That's not hard. So I always try and please the client on that side. But maybe on this side, I shouldn't be trying to please other people so much.
I was going to say, there's one of my favorite philosophers and psychologists is Carl Jung, right? And he talks a lot about the extremes of both sides. And it kind of feels like you're having a battle between those two sides. And one is look, his determination is good and evil, right? Or good and bad, whatever it is. Or right and wrong, whatever. Like, it feels like on one side, okay, you're still getting to do your style, you're still progressing your style, and you're still painting and doing whatever it is that is your style. However, if I said to you, Ryan, I want a cat, right? You're like, all right, sound, I can do a cat, no problems. And it comes out in your style, that's fine. But maybe in your head, you're like, what the fuck do you want a cat for? But then on the other side, like, as you say, your professional work, your illustration work is not to say that your personal work isn't professional, but you know what I mean? Like, the work that you're commissioned to do is entirely about pleasing other people. Yeah. Why the fuck do you care about pleasing anyone but yourself in your personal work? Yeah,
well, that's it. Like that's what I should be thinking, isn't it? And I do a lot of the time. I am like, fuck it, like that. This is exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I remember like a few years ago, maybe about 4 years ago, I was doing a show, and I had all my work set up and stuff, and someone came up to us and was like, why is there like so much of your stuff got skulls on? I don't like that. I'm like, well, I do. Like at the time, that's just what I wanted to put out. Just like, oh no, I don't think it works with motorcycles at all. You're just saying everyone's going to get killed on a motorbike or blah. I was just like, man, fucking hell. Like, I just said, like, I'm going to paint what I'm going to put out what I want to put out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't like try and please everybody.
Why would you even try? Why would you even think about
exactly, it? I know. I think everyone just thinks, not everyone, that's bullshit, but a lot of people think they should just they've got a right to just say whatever they want, because they probably sit behind their phone just complaining shit all day, and well, yeah, because everyone's used to having an outlet where they can just like say what they want to see.
Mm.
You go on Instagram, you don't like something, you just unfollow it, you just take it out your feed.
Sort of. I mean, there's an illusion, right? And I think there's 2 points to say. The first point is actually everyone does have a right to say what they want to say, but in the same vein, everyone also, the understanding of having a right to say whatever you want to say is that the person can respond however the fuck they want to respond as well, right? Saying that there's just an abhorrent right that I can say what I want to say and then you don't get to say anything.
Yeah, totally. Case, right? Yeah, well, take on board what the other person's saying, like
of course,
on both sides.
That person can come up to you and say, Ryan, I don't like schools, and you're like, that's absolutely fine. Thank you for your opinion.
Yeah.
Fuck off, mate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And like, I would say nearly all of my client work, they're like, cannot contain a skull. I'm like, yeah, that's fine, because it's a commercial job, and like that just isn't going to sell. Sure. But like you say, like I'm not trying to please everybody with my artwork, so I'll, you put in what you want to put in right then.
And the other side of it, right, is there's an illusion of curation on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
You just said that if people don't like it, they can remove it from their feed. Sort of.
Yeah.
Because there's an algorithm in there somewhere that will always throw something back at you. And let's say let's say I was following you, right? And I was like, oh, Ryan's putting too many skulls and I've decided I hate skulls. And I unfollowed you. I can almost guarantee that I would find a piece of your work on my explore page somewhere.
Yeah.
Just to see, am I going to click that? Am I going to engage with that? How long do I spend on that, right? Or something of your style. Maybe it'll be someone that you follow. Maybe it'll be somebody that follows you or whatever. Like, in a roundabout way, that community is set for you. And the algorithm works in such a fashion that it's very hard for you to exit out of everything that you've followed in some fashion. Because you pointed out at the start of the podcast, like the amount of time that we spend on Instagram, the amount of information that we've given about ourselves to Instagram, we can't even comprehend, I suspect. And yet that metadata is sat in a database somewhere that's being used all of the time to advertise to you in various fashions. Yeah. And I guess that kind of pertains to surveillance, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like once, it's like, I mean, like 10, 15 years ago, could anyone have seen like how much you would be monitored through our own doing? Like we all like got on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Mm-hmm. There's no way you would know that you would be tracked as much as you are now. I mean, everyone's super conscious of it now.
Well, but I feel like 2 points. I mean, I'll ask your opinion of both of these. Everything can be determined in life by marketing of some fashion, whether it be biological marketing, that one male is more attractive to a species of females than another, and therefore he gets to reproduce, right? And this is fucking 20,000 years ago or whatever it is. To now that you'd pick Heinz tomato ketchup over Tesco's tomato ketchup because it's marketed to you better.
Yeah.
Right? So the decisions that you're making generally are influenced in some fashion by marketing. Mm-hmm. Well, if you want somebody to make a decision, it's far better for them to determine that they've made it themselves rather than you telling them to make it. So when it comes to Facebook or Instagram or whatever, you sell the tool so hard that somebody determines that it's them making the choice to give their data, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same when it comes to now. We're saying, oh, people are hyper vigilant about it. How many users do you think sign up to Instagram every day? Because it's not stopping. Do you know what I mean? And the users that are still hyper vigilant, like you, for instance, or myself, we can have this conversation about privacy. But when this podcast episode comes out, I'm going to upload a poster with your face on it, and I'm going to tag you in it, and I'm adding to the same machine. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's no escaping it now, though, is there? Like the ball's rolling, and it's like there's no return. There's no return. But whatever.
Yeah,
Got an infinite fuel tank.
yeah, maybe it's the greatest motorcycle I've ever seen with an
Yeah,
infinite
exactly.
fuel tank. Talk to me about motorcycles. How did that come about?
Oh man, what riding them or like drawing them or?
Whatever, mate. You tell me.
Well, I've always been into motorbikes since I was a kid, and then blasting around the local farmers' fields and stuff.
Mhm.
And then when I was 21, I got my bike license and sort of never looked back. um, and then I've had a couple of crashes.
Gnarly ones or
sorry,
gnarly ones or
yeah, I did have one where it was about a year after I passed my test actually, and got a big
oh dear.
arm. Yeah, I snapped my hand off. My hand was like down here. And they were going to amputate my arm actually, but they saved it. Thank God for the NHS.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going above and beyond, because I had 2 operations to save my arm. And then just happened upon a magazine called Sideburn Magazine, and the editor Gary, who's been like a massive establishing sort of driving part of my career in the early days, he asked me to do some work for the magazine, and that was really how the two, my artwork and the passion for motorbikes sort of gelled. And I never actually aimed for it whatsoever. Like I didn't aim to put motorbikes and art together, but Sideburn Magazine was sort of the binding thing, and it showed us this path. And then I think you have to just take the path, you make your own opportunities, and that happened, and I took that and sort of ran with it.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there's something. So I've spoken to quite a few people, right? This is episode 65, I think, or 64, whatever it is, and there seems to be a recurring theme, right? And I'm one for patterns. I like a pattern. I'm happy with a pattern. Right. And the pattern that I find from most people that have fallen into their passion, I guess, or they've made their passion some form of financial dividend is exactly that. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just happened.
Yeah.
I just fell into this.
Yeah. You hear that all the time, don't you?
Yeah.
And then there's that old saying of like, make your own luck, and it is that, isn't it? Because
I mean, I don't really believe in luck, but
no, exactly. There's not, is there? Because you make you make your own. It's not luck. Like if I hadn't have been actively drawing for like however many years, then if I'd been baking cakes, I would probably be making motorbike cakes now. I don't know.
Right, exactly.
But, yeah,
you're right.
You do it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Gary wouldn't have reached out to you and been like, "Oh, I really like your work," or "Your work's good," and maybe we can encapsulate this or that or the next thing. Yeah. If you weren't spending fucking 10 years previous to that drawing shit and Googling and stretching and sketching and painting and doing all this stuff, like
that's it.
It just wouldn't happen.
There's certainly an element of like being in the right place at the right time, but you have to put yourself in that place. That's the thing.
Yeah. You're the first person that I've had this conversation with that's agreed with me. So yeah, massive shout out for that. But I can't see that it goes any other way, frankly. I think that, at the end of the day, we are products of our environment, and there is some fashion of us that architects that environment in some way, whether it be consciously, subconsciously, or a myriad of variables that determine what our environment is. I think you at some point would have picked up a pencil and been like, I'm going to draw today because I like drawing, or you'd have picked up a pen and been like, I'm going to draw today because I like drawing, and then that would have turned into a habit, and a habit would have turned into a lifetime, and now you're in the studio and your gaff selling artwork through Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't just happen, does it?
No, I don't think so. I think very, very rarely things just happen.
No, they don't. You have to, you've got to be motivated and go and get it.
Yeah. So outside of a motorbike, outside of an art studio, who are you? What do you do? How do you find enjoyment in life?
Well, at the moment, and this last year, I've been stuck in the house and just been working. So I think about this quite a lot, actually. Like my artwork is pretty much like a lot of my life. You know, when I'm not riding my bike, you know, spending time with my wife or whatever, or family, then I'm creating something, or I'm working for someone else, you know. But when I'm not working for clients, I'm generally I would say there's probably not many weeks where I probably work over the year. I would say it must be 6.5 days a week. It's got to be.
Yeah.
It's got to be like, I don't take many days where I don't do some kind of work. Yeah, that's pretty boring, isn't it? That's pretty.
I don't think so.
Crap.
I mean, is it exhausting?
Working, yeah. I get so burned out, man. This whole lockdown, because I've been so busy and I've been so fortunate and lucky that work.
Not lucky.
Well, yeah, good jobs dropped.
Yeah.
But and I've been so like busy and concentrating on that. It's been absolutely fine. Felt a little guilty that, like, you know, I had work on while other people did it and stuff. But it was like the last month, I just got to a point where I was like, oh, I am just so fed up with this now. I'm fed up. I'm just so sick, like not in a good spot, you know, to produce work, and just not in a creative environment, and you know. But that is the least of the worries, you know, of people in this pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, but problems are still problems at the end of the day. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I absolutely empathize with your point that at the end of the day, you know, it's a good problem to have too much work, right?
Yeah, totally.
But in the same vein, it's also still a problem, you know, and it's still something that affects you specifically. And in this, you know, what you don't want to be in a position of is that you're attempting to produce so much work that your work is degraded as a result, right?
Yeah.
You know, I feel like there's a very finite limit on the resources of everyone. And you know, you may well be able to work 6.5 days a week, and those creative juices and that creative tank, that creative fuel tank, if you will, is almost full all of the time. But as you rightly say, there gets to a point where you're like, fuck me, like, when does this end?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You're just treading water eventually.
Right. And then how do you get out of that, right? Because if you're a man that doesn't take any breaks, that seems like a pretty vicious cycle to me.
Well, it is, isn't it? And yeah, it's not sustainable. So I've got a few like projects that are coming to a close now, and I'm having to turn down work just so I can take a bit of time off, really. Which is sort of ideal because, fingers crossed, some restrictions are going to be starting to come to an end. So that'll be a good time to sort of try and take a bit more of a break, wouldn't it? So
yeah.
But yeah, you can't really burn out because it's just not constructive for producing work, you know.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when you get to a position like you have, where you're well respected and well sought after in the community that you work in, you almost have like a duty, right, to stay present. And I mean, actually, that's probably a really bad thing now I think about it. You know, for you to be a duty, you're sort of at the pinnacle of where you are. I mean, maybe you don't think that, but from the outside looking in, you know, you're sort of at the pinnacle of the situation that you're in, the community that you're in. And yeah, it feels like you kind of have a duty to be producing work all of the time, when actually, you know, think about a musician, right, or a band or whatever. You may put out one album a year, maybe.
Yeah.
Now that may not be super right. And imagine if you put out one set of prints a year.
Yeah. Well, that would actually be a mint way to work, wouldn't it? Like, artists sort of come together and then just have like a week or a month or whatever in a studio recording an album. That would be a good way to produce some work, you know, like you have this 1 month, 1 month and or 2 months a year, one every 6 months, where you just collate all your ideas and you just spend that 1 month just producing a body of work that you put out. In fact, that's probably how a lot of artists actually do work. But
maybe because
yeah, that was good.
you know, I wonder whether that's a possibility, because you know, in my job, for instance, you know, I'm still of the sort of office 9 to 5 kind of, you're mandated to be at your desk for this amount of time a day, whereas actually my job could probably be done in 4 hours, right?
Yeah,
probably. You know, and they'd be an intense 4 hours, right? You know, you'd be at your desk and you'd be white knuckling for 4 hours, but then you've got 20 hours of the day left.
Yeah. Is it better to just go hard and then have the spare time, or is it better to meander along doing it?
You know, and I think for you specifically as an artist, maybe you do, but I'd imagine that the richest ideas come when you've got multiple stimulus at one time. Whereas when you're smashing out a piece of work, it's very difficult to allow more stimulus in and more ideas to come in, because you're so focused on one thing. So to your point, like imagine if you had 6 months worth of stimulus. Yeah. And you're like, right, lads, let's do some fucking work. Let's go.
Yeah. That would be mint as well if you could like collaborate with like, if you had another 2 artists and you just came together for like a month in a studio to see what work you can all come up with.
Why don't you set that up?
Yeah, it would be good, wouldn't it? We'd do that.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a position to do that, right? Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, I mean, obviously I don't know about your finances or whatever, but I suspect that you could probably set that up, right? And do something like that. It's almost as in like a tattoo convention, right? Tattoo conventions happen once a year, and all of a sudden you get 3 artists working on one dude, and the piece is just a mishmash of mad shit, right? That probably looks really good at the end of it. But you know, why wouldn't that happen for Ryan Roadkill X 2 other artists?
Exactly. Yeah, it would be mint, that, wouldn't it? And then like a specific show just for the body of work.
Right.
You see, I'm getting me ideas flowing now.
Good.
Wait from work for a minute.
And you know, like, you know, don't get me wrong, it would be good to have actual humans there that could see it, right? But
yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, within 6 months, I think you're probably in a position to do that. As you say, fingers crossed. Not that we believe in luck or hope, but you know, it would be good to have some restrictions lifted, and you know, you could easily do a sort of COVID safe art show, right? You just allow a certain amount of people into a room at a time. And
well, there's not a local gallery just did and I've seen a few others doing it, actually, like Stolen Space in London as well. You know, that they did like virtual shows.
It's not the same though, is it?
It's not the same. No, it's definitely not. But it is a workaround from, you know, the situation that we're in. If worse getting worse and you're still, you know, under like heavy restrictions in, you know, 6-8 months time, then yeah.
Do you sell your originals at shows and stuff?
Yeah. But I mean, I've got a drawer full of like original Incans, which are from like client jobs and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
You know, so like before they go and like get digitally colored or whatever, you know, like I try and like do like Incans like this.
Yeah. So for the people that aren't watching the YouTube version, go and watch the YouTube version. You can see what Ryan's pointing to.
Yeah. Well, essentially, they're just the black line work.
Yeah.
That everything else is built around, and that's sort of the fundamental part of my work. I think that's what, to me, in my head, that's the key part of my work. Because I always think, I know everyone always says your colours are so good, but you know, and like, yeah, I did work hard on establishing like colour palettes and how colours work together and really making them pop, and like that became like a signature thing. But in my head, like that, the line work is the signature to my work, because I think it just looks better in just black and white. Yeah, just the black and white artwork. And I was thinking today, because I heard someone else, I can't remember who it was, but another artist was just recently talking about how they prefer that work, or they start in just black and white and then add colour secondarily. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly how I work, and that's what I've always been saying. And I think that actually comes, that for me, I think that comes back from being at college, and doing like graphics, graphic design, and they were always like, look, your logo has to work black and white. All logos have to work just black and white, and you can build color in afterwards, but they have to work black and white. And that was always hammered into us, you know.
Yeah, I mean, when I did our A level, I always hated adding color. Always
Yeah,
hated it. I felt
yeah.
like it's probably because I was shit at adding color, right? That's probably the basis of it. But
Well,
I
think I am as well, to be honest.
I just felt like there's more depth, and that sounds really stupid because it should be the antithesis of that. But I always felt there was more depth in just black and white than there is when you add color. Always.
Yeah, well, like comic books and stuff, you know, like
Yes.
mostly black and white, and they're awesome.
Yeah.
They just stand out, like they're just like no bullshit, like they're just stripped down to the purest form. I think they're so graphic.
Yeah.
And that's really like what my work is about, you know, like in terms of like the technique.
So would you do
stripping
a
it
series
back.
of would you do a series of black and white? Just black and white?
Yeah, probably would. And I was even thinking of like maybe doing like, I've got a lot of sketches that I'm going to frame up, and I'll probably try and if there's enough of them, do like a little mini show of just original sketch works, you know.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. I think it would be good, like, you know, for people to see the beginning stages of the process, but actually that also the finished, you know, they're the pieces for sale, you know. That would be good.
I love that, because again, that sort of fits really beautifully with what you were saying before of how actually you don't want to show people the process as in live, sort of a purveyor view, but more than happy to be like, this is the original sketch. This is where your favorite color piece came from. This is the father of that piece. Yeah.
And this skate deck here actually isn't my work. This is Coop. And he's like one of my favorite artists. And he does that a lot. Like he's got like stuff going back to the 80s. And like he sells a lot of his like original inkings. And again, like for his work, I think like that his ink work is just perfect. And it just works on its own, you know, it doesn't need any color. It's just like, it's awesome. So yeah, I think I will do like pursue something that just doing a show with just black and white, you know, just black ink work.
That would be amazing. Yeah, I'm down for that. Yeah. I'm down for that.
To be honest, at the minute, I would just do a show of anything.
Yeah, I mean, like what? Explain to me how a show works for an artist.
Well, I mean, I'm not. I've been on like a few group shows and stuff. I've only done like a couple of like solo shows, and not really as in depth as like what most artists do. So I'm not that proficient at putting together a show, but I guess generally like you would, you know, there's a theme and you would put a body of work together for it. And in my take on it, for what I've got in my head, would be to have stuff from like original sketches through to like print works, you know, printed multiples, and then like some original paintings as well, of like various sizes. And I do have like a plan in my head, like what it's going to look like, and I've sort of been messing around with a few things over the last year or two, so it sort of is planned out in my head, and I've got a few sketches lying around, and like, yeah, it is sort of taking shape in my head and on paper. So
because it's kind of like a band gig, like a headline gig is sort of your show, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, what do you take from that as an other than revenue, obviously? Like, what do you take from that as an artist? You get to meet people and all that shit.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's probably one of the best things, isn't it? You know, like actually meeting the people that are into your artwork. And also, if you do it through a gallery, then you're a lot more likely to sort of spread yourself onto another clientele, which you would not normally like sort of attain through your social media or whatever, you know. So
they're all there to see you.
Yeah, exactly. Although, like, I'm probably not the at those events. Like, I'm probably not the I don't know, sort of. It's just hard to talk to people sometimes, you know.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, but it is what it is, isn't it?
I'm about as introverted as you can get outside of the podcast.
Yeah.
And people don't really believe that, right? When I'm like, oh yeah, I've done a podcast, and there's probably 150 hours of me rabbiting on about various things currently out there, and then they see me outside, and I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm the same as well. You know, like I think in fact, I don't really put my face on my Instagram at all.
Yes.
Like, part of that was sort of like people didn't really see us. Like only the people that knows, you know, at events and stuff knew who I was. But I was gonna like sort of just live as this like roadkill alter ego, and like ideally I would just turn up with a motorbike helmet on or something, and no one would know who I was.
Yeah, you'd be the Ryan Roadkill Stig.
Yeah, there's a great musician that I used to listen to, and like I've seen him like loads of times, like years back. I haven't seen him for probably about I don't know, maybe 10 years or something. But he was called Bob Log.
Okay.
And he used to like play. He was like one man band, and he had like a motorbike helmet with a visor on, and you couldn't see his face. You like never knew who his identity was. That was his whole cool thing. Yeah. So yeah, I'd probably end off like if people hadn't really known what I looked like, I would probably just do that. You know, like rock up with a motorbike helmet on. No one would know.
Why though?
I just I don't know. I think an air of mystery about the social media, and just so I can hide away, so I don't have to talk to everybody.
Yeah, again. I don't blame you. I can't imagine what it's like to be, you know, I mean, I'm not saying you're famous or anything like that, but to have multiple thousands of people follow your work and interact with you, I imagine on a semi-consistent basis, to keep up with that must be exhausting, first of all.
It is full time, you know, like my wife helps us out a lot, like with replying to emails and stuff, because the administrative side of things, like if you forget about Instagram, put that on one side, just the amount of emails I've got to attend to all the time, and I forget to reply to this and forget to reply to that, and prioritize this one and that one, and that's just like the day-to-day running of like being an illustrator, you know.
Yeah,
it's so hard like keeping up when I need to just get on with the work. Then you throw Instagram into the mix, and people have now got like this other really more instantaneous point of contact for you. I have so many messages, so many like direct messages that I just it's so hard to keep up with. And the way Instagram, it's a lot easier to keep up with things on email. So sometimes say to those people, can we just take this to email if it's about work? Because things just get lost in that. I just scroll through and like, there it's like 30 people down, you know, like just so hard to keep up. It's really hard.
Yeah, I mean, sort of this me messaging you to come on the podcast was kind of a shot in the dark, really, because
and I kept losing your message as well, because I would get so many messages and then I reply to them, but then that's now off the page and I have to scroll right through. I don't know how many messages I get, but it seems like it's a lot more than I do emails.
Yes, and that's nuts, right? That is nuts. Absolutely nuts. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't feel like the human brain is built yet for this kind of exposure to information, one, but other humans too, right?
Yeah, and like I always think that humans just haven't, maybe they are meant for it because, you know, we make our own destiny or whatever, but humans have not adapted well to like mass contact.
No, not yet.
You know, it used to be that you would just have a social circle that you had contact with and you could outreach from that, you know, however way, but then now it's like you just think humans can just spread information so fast. And that's pretty dangerous, I think, really, because no one knows how to police it, or if it should be policed. So like, man, we're at a turning point in human history for sure.
Almost certainly. And I think we've been at the point of actually, I disagree. I don't think we're at a turning point. I think we've already turned.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't think
we're trying to react to it now.
Yes, absolutely. It's definitely in a situation where the change has definitely happened, because now, like, it's almost, and this is maybe a weird comparison, but go with me and we'll see what we get to. There's all this talk about the gun debate in America, right?
The gun debate, did you say?
Yeah, exactly. So, and the whole thing is like, well, how are you going to take everyone's guns away? Like, how are you going to do that physically, logistically? How are you going to take everyone's guns away?
Yeah.
Now ask the same question, but replace guns with internet.
Yeah, exactly. Or phones. Yeah, like,
right.
Yeah.
How are you going to do it? It's impossible, almost impossible for you to be like, oh yeah, sound, I'm just gonna come over there and just grab that phone for you, sir. If I could just take that phone off you, sir. No chance.
Exactly. No, because it's like built into everyone now. And like this, like the next generation of kids, like they won't know any different. I was pretty lucky that we used to like run around with BB guns shooting each other. Like there's no way you could get away with that now. And we used to like rip around the farmers' fields and in motorbikes and stuff, and you just get absolutely, I don't know, people turn the blind eye on stuff like that. And now it's just, there's a generation of kids where they just are going to be born into this post-internet world.
Mm-hmm. Well,
maybe not post-internet, but post-social media. I think that's the main thing.
Yes, my nephew, this is crazy to me. This is still when I think about this is crazy to me. My nephew is coming up for 4 years old, right? When he was about 2.5, he'd never been shown how to use tech, right? But he managed to unlock my sister's phone. He went to the app store. He bought an app, right? And then he streamed it to the TV and started watching it, right? Because my sister got like a notification on her tablet downstairs, and she was like, "What the fuck is Spider-Man Go?" So she goes upstairs, and George, who's my nephew, is sat there happy as Larry in front of the TV watching the Spider-Man Go. She was like, "What the fuck has gone on here?" And he showed her like what he did.
How he did it.
Right. And he had no idea. He'd never been taught that. He just intuitively did it. In the same vein, yeah, absolutely. In the same vein, now he's a little bit older. He watches, and this still blows my mind too. He loves Sonic the Hedgehog, right? Sonic the Hedgehog is the man at the moment.
Yeah.
So he'll have his tablet, and on one side of the tablet he'll watch somebody playing Sonic, right? And then on the other side, he's playing Sonic, but he's mimicking the movements like perfectly. And these are guys playing Sonic at like a really high level, right? And he's just doing exactly the same thing. He's like a robot. It's fucking weird. It's so weird.
Bloody hell. Yeah, that's crazy. That's a funny thing that you say there, though, like a robot, because
yes,
because people say, but I guess like the consensus is that robots will take jobs from humans.
Yes,
but I think maybe what you'll actually find is that humans will be the robots. Humans will just do these monotonous tasks, just repetitive, monotonous tasks, because we're doing it already. Like I find myself like I pick up my phone and I'm like, oh shit, like someone's messages here on Instagram, and then it's built so you just constantly swipe and doing the same thing. Like I think it's already like turning people into robots.
So, I mean, we could even argue that people have been robots for a long time, but actually the mundane tasks just get faster.
Yeah, right? True. Mm-hmm.
Like data entry. Let's just say data entry, right? If you're just typing in shit in a spreadsheet, if you had to write that shit out by hand, it would have taken you so much longer than if you were just typing it out, right? Now, to your point, I have this mad philosophy idea that actually, instead of, and it kind of sits with your idea of humans becoming the robots rather than robots becoming humans necessarily, is that actually what's happening is that humanity is architecting the next evolution of itself, and that is tech, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe we didn't know back in the day when we built fire that was going to be a massive evolution for humanity.
Yeah.
Maybe we didn't know that as we were coming from, frog spawn, essentially, that we were going to evolve into feet because we needed them, or, the capacity to breathe outside of water, or whatever it is. I believe that semi-consciously, more conscious than we've ever been, we are building the next evolution of what it is to be human, quote unquote. But that is called tech or AI or whatever.
Yeah.
Even let's just take your work, for instance. Never before in a world has it, 50 years ago, let's just say, would it be possible for you to mass produce work like you can on a tablet, right? Or with a pen or with a brush or whatever. Like you said earlier, like sometimes I sort of get 75% of my work and then I put it on, I get it digital and I finish it off digitally.
Yeah.
That's never fucking happened before.
No, totally. The technology wasn't there, was it?
Right. And now you could be Ryan Roadkill, but you could never touch a piece of paper again in your life.
Oh, totally. Like I could totally do that. 100%. Yeah.
Madness.
It is. Also, like, I was listening to a thing about AI, and they got an algorithm to create a song.
Okay, yeah.
Because they said, like, there's one thing that computers and AI can't ever do, which is like be creative. But like they proved that, like, I mean, it was pretty shit, but they proved that, well, it can be in the future, like it can be creative and it can do almost any job.
Right. I mean, I think it depends on what your determination of creative is. Right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, true. Mm-hmm.
And this really gets down to the position of what's sentient, what's not sentient, what's conscious, what's not conscious. Because, one of the first AI tests that Facebook did, you've probably heard about this. I can't remember the name of it, but anyway, so the way the AI generally works is it's a master and slave, right? So there's a master that has the master algorithm, the slave has to learn it.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did is they plugged together the master with a language algorithm. And the idea was that the master had to teach the slave how to speak English, right?
Right.
So when they connected the two AI systems, what happened very quickly is the master just said, "Oh, fuck this English stuff," and they just built their own language.
Oh, right.
Right. Now, Facebook had no idea that was even possible, and they shut the program down really quickly. But what it showed is that the algorithm was able to learn that English was basically not efficient enough to meet the objectives of the algorithm. The algorithm was like, "Oh, fuck this English stuff off. We'll just make our own thing." And if that's not creative, I'd like to see what is creative. Do you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Oh man, it's scary, really.
But is it, right? Because my kind of thought is, if you, Ryan Roadkill, were alive and in your 20s in the 50s, right, and the new Honda came out and somebody showed it to you, you'd be like, "Oh, fuck me, it's scary what they're going to do with bikes. They're getting rid of the essence of what it is to ride, and they're doing this." But then you today were able to be like, "Oh, actually, I'm not even sure I can say that the 50s and 60s were pioneering years, because look at what they're doing now," right?
Yeah, exactly.
You can see the positivity of it. I think that what we're doing is we are so adverse to change that we have a negative spin on what tech is going to become, but we have no fucking idea whether it's good or not, really.
Yeah. It's true, like humans, like inherently are just fear change, don't they? It's just,
yes. Yeah. Because change is the alien, right? Change is the virus to the tribe. And if we don't have change, then everything will just continue as is and everything will be okay.
Yeah.
But in the same vein, and this is why humans are so beautifully, they're full of dichotomy, is you don't draw like you drew 15 years ago. You don't illustrate like you did 15 years ago. You don't think like you did 15 years ago, because inherently there is something in you that strives for better, strives for perfection, strives for progress.
Yeah.
And it's managing that. You've even illustrated it in this conversation. You're like, "I want to do more of what I want to do, but I have to think commercially." Do you?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And I think maybe it's even closer to that AI that you said, where they create their own language and learned. because I've probably, like if you go back 15 years, the Emmy work's completely different to now. But not only have I been like consciously moving towards that, but you've been taking in 15 years worth of information, like seeing what other people are doing and like, what work people are producing, and subconsciously like eating all that up.
Yeah.
And then you just spit out what you spit out, right? Which is the same as what you do with those computers. You feed them with the information and then see what they come out with.
Yep. Well, I watched a really amazing, really amazing AI debate. So with like, it was IBM that built this AI, and it was called Project Debater, which, as you can imagine, is such a brilliantly creative name. And it had a live debate with some Oxford champion debate guy or whatever it is. Anyway. And they had a debate over like American Social Security and whatever. And as you can imagine, the debater came back with arguments that were entirely statistic based, right? But what I found was amazing was the time it took, because they explained what the algorithm was doing in the background after the debate. And what the algorithm was essentially doing is going out and taking keywords that it had heard and processed from the actual human debater. And it did a mass Google search, essentially, and it pulled all streams of information into its own database, analyzed it, and then formed a sentence that was legible, truthful, and objective to the argument in like 4 seconds. And you're like, Jesus Christ, that's impressive. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, even the arguments themselves, right? They were fine arguments, frankly, and they would have passed. If a human had said those arguments, you'd have been like, fuck me, that's a decent argument. Like that's a solid argument. But because it came out of the computer, people were like, it's a computer argument. But when you nail it down,
the process
is fucking nuts.
Yeah. And like I was saying before, like humans probably weren't ever meant to have like such mass information. Well, AI obviously clearly was meant to have that access to that information, because
it does.
So humans are meant to have it, but let them use that AI to their advantage, because they obviously naturally adapt to it.
Right. And I find what's interesting is you're calling AI they, right? You almost see, this is the thing, right? Like people are saying, right, we're saying, we're being surveyed, we're being this, we're being that, the overlords are taking over. But already in our brain, something is saying to us like, the AI, right? We're already putting them, exactly, we're already putting them on a sentient pedestal alongside, even above what it is to be human. Is that not fucking mental?
Yeah, it's mad. Yeah, you're totally right. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I have no idea what happens in the future. I have no idea. I mean, I have a prediction, right? But that prediction is only based on assumptions, and that prediction is that there will become a second turning point, and that turning point will be when humanity decide what it is and isn't to be human, and then there'll be a really stark reality of whether we ever leave our houses again.
Yeah.
Well, think about it, right? Think about this. So, and I think lockdowns proved this really well.
I was going to say that's
if
lockdown night, isn't it?
If you tell me what you need to leave your house for.
Yeah, there's probably nothing anymore, because.
Right. So if you want to eat,
entertainment, I guess entertainment.
You reckon you need to leave your house for entertainment?
Well, you don't have to.
Right. Right. And this is my point. It's about need, right? So if we take what we were discussing before about marketing and how we adopt Facebook, Instagram, all this stuff because we subconsciously choose to take part in it, right? You don't need to leave your house to eat. You can either have Tesco's deliver food for you, or you can have takeaway, right? Sound. So we don't do that. Water comes out the tap. You could have alcohol served to you if you wanted, or fizzy drinks, or whatever you want delivered. All the basic necessities are there for you. You want to buy clothes? ASOS. You want to buy games? PlayStation Store. You want to buy tech, anything else, Amazon. You want to buy painting materials, wherever you buy painting materials, right?
Yeah.
You want to not buy painting materials at all, iPad, done.
Yeah.
Right. So we're beginning to facilitate life inside our four walls, right? And the big thing is human interaction. All right, cool. Well, what about if I hand you this brand new VR headset that you can put on your head and it's entirely undiscernible whether you're sat at your desk right now or whether you're at the pub with your mates having a pint.
Yeah. And I think VR, yeah, you're totally right there. Like VR is like, that technology is going to move so fast.
Right. And if I said to you that same VR headset, you could ask it to take you to the 1950s, that you could go and ride the bikes of then. Yeah. Would you do that? Yeah, of course you do that. So you think Instagram's a time suck now. How about if that VR headset could take you wherever you fucking wanted at any period of time and do whatever you wanted? Mate, there is no fucking chance anyone takes that thing off.
No, they wouldn't, would they?
Right. And then when that integrates with Instagram and Facebook, and you can Twitch stream whatever it is you're doing in VR, and that VR headset has an understanding of your sleep need, your hydration need, your food need, and automatically it can go and you've already programmed in your favorite foods and just orders it for you and it appears at your door. Mate, it's not that far away. The integrations are not that far away.
No, that's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. But then, yeah, you just become part of the system, don't you?
Well, the system is created by us, right? So to say that we become part of the system is almost falsified, because
so is Instagram, isn't it?
Right, exactly. It's entirely human driven. Frankly, it's human engineered to an extent, right? Because obviously there's algorithms or whatever, but those algorithms didn't create themselves at the very birth. Humans created themselves. And what's so mad about this is, we talk about the Bible and this and that and the next thing. If humans aren't playing God with tech and AI, I'm not really sure what God is as a creator. Do you know what I mean?
No, you're totally right. Yeah, awesome.
So yeah, that's my prediction for what the future looks like, potentially anyway.
Yeah, I think that sounds pretty feasible. Sure.
Yeah,
totally right, man. Like I would, yeah, give us an opportunity to stick one of those headsets on and go back in time,
or forward in time, right? And then and how this just becomes so, how this just grows and grows and grows and grows, right? Is think about a game, right? If you're playing a theme park world, right? It's just the first thing that came to my head. You could build. Do you ever play Theme Park World?
No, but I know. I know what it is.
Right. Yeah. Cool. So for those
I used to play.
Right. Exactly. So the people that don't know what Theme Park World is, basically you have a blank piece of land, you build a theme park. That's Theme Park World. How about if that was the same but with worlds, like universes, right? So I put my VR headset on and I send a friend request to Ryan Roadkill, and Ryan Roadkill invites me to his universe, and I go in and it's just mad shit everywhere, like shit that you've curated, you've architected. You are literally the artist of your universe. Well, I could invite you in mine, but you could spend an entire fucking lifetime in mine exploring my universe, and I could do yours. But how about if that's extrapolated by the 7 billion people that are in the world?
Yeah.
Then it becomes much more than just sat with your mates in a virtual pub or going back to the 1950s. It's literally that's it. Like, it's too much stimulus. It's just too much. But people, as you've been addicted to art for God knows how long, but you become addicted to the stimuli, and the stimuli will override the overarching nature for what it is. Like the day that VR takes over the world is the day that VR becomes more attractive than the outside world. And I just can't see that won't be in our future.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think some people are already there with, like with computer games and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Especially like like massive world games and stuff. So immersive, aren't they? Like,
yep.
Yeah, that's mad. Yeah, I think you could be right.
well, I'm sorry for just destroying your worldview, but
I'm going to give up on art now.
Oh Jesus, don't say that. Don't say that. But you know, I think to sort of round this whole thing off, as I understand, I've taken nearly an hour and 30 of your time. Is that I feel like, however, there are cornerstones still of what it is to be human, and regardless of whether we are in a VR headset or whether, you know, because even think about this conversation. If I got on the train from London and traveled up north to see you, it probably would have been a far more immersive conversation for both of us, right? Because there's not external stimuli, it's just us having a conversation, but we're still able to converse and have, you know, a relatively comprehensive conversation just over a webcam and a microphone. But I feel like regardless of whether we're doing it virtually or in person or on a VR headset, the necessity for art still exists, right?
Yeah.
And this was kind of going to be my closing statement regardless, but I wonder if you ever thought or ever think about how important you are to the pantheon of art globally.
Me?
Yeah, of course.
I don't know. I guess that depends how many like boundaries you're pushing and stuff, you know, like are you moving things on? And I don't think I am. No, I don't think in my head, I'm not like pushing anything on, you know, I'm just doing what I know and like carry on producing that, and people like it. And I've got a fan base who, you know, is into it. I don't think I'm really like pushing things on in terms of art.
Can I challenge that?
Sorry?
Can I challenge that?
Yeah, feel free.
So my challenge to that is this, that you've just said, oh, I'm not pushing it on, I'm only doing what I know. Well, what you know is what you've taught yourself. You know, you said previously that you're almost entirely self-taught, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then in that vein, the boundary that you're pushing is not only the limit that you had of yourself, because every year on year on year and week on week on week you're getting better, but you're proving to people externally that you can teach yourself whatever you want and you can become successful at it. If that's not pushing the boundaries, I don't know what is.
Yeah. When you put it in that point, is perspective. Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm. Maybe like, you know, if that inspires someone else, some other budding illustrator, you know, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I wondered, you know, because I find this with artists, especially successful ones, that they often look internally at what the art is telling them, but they don't look internally about who they are externally. Does that make sense? Like that question I just asked. So, you know, I don't imagine, you know, the reach that you have, or how much people actually really love your work, or what they take from your work, or the impact that you have on people, because you're an artist, right? It's just what you do. But I wonder whether over the next little while you could take a step back and actually put yourself in the other people's shoes and see the impact that you have and the impact you have had on the art scene in your, you know, in your genre. I mean, you know, art as a genre, that's fucking ludicrous. Like, it's so massive, but in the subgenre that you have, like, I'd be interested to see if you were to take a step back and actually see the impact that you've had, because I think you'd be vastly shocked.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. It would be good to know. Maybe it wouldn't.
Who knows, right?
It might be. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. At the end of the day, you know, like, I'm not, I think like first aid workers and stuff could probably look back and be like, oh yeah, like, I'm changing people's lives. For me, I'm just producing the work that I want to sort of produce. Yeah, and maybe there's a byproduct of that. Yeah, you might be right.
Almost certainly. It's impossible to think that there isn't, because there is no action without reaction.
Yeah, true.
It's just not possible. And I understand your point about first aid workers and whatever, but everything is relative, right?
Yeah,
everything is relative. You know, the power that somebody takes from an action is actually inconceivable to you. You know, you, as you say, I'm just here in my fucking studio just making artwork, right? But a piece of artwork that somebody may buy from you may just change their life entirely, you know?
Yeah. No, you're right. And I hope like maybe some people are inspired, you know, and want to just fulfill their yeah, their dreams maybe. I know it wasn't exactly that way for me, but yeah, I just sort of did it. And then I look back and I think, oh God, like, well, I can't even remember what it was like going full time. I can't even remember. Like, but I sort of do remember that, I didn't really have any work on. I just knew I wanted to do it. I, and I would say that I've spent more time not earning money than I have earning money.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's touch wood. It has come good in the last like 4 or 5 years. So
Well, look, I mean, I think that's probably a really beautiful place to leave this. That one, you're a measure of your own success, right? Yeah, you're right. In the last only 4 or 5 years, whatever it is, you've only just started earning money. But this should just be the beginning too. You know what I mean? Like now you are full time. Now you are dedicated to just doing what you want to do. This thing should only just grow and grow and grow and grow and grow until to the point that you want it to grow. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah, I hope so.
I see no reason why it wouldn't. And I'm now going to offer you the floor where shout out whoever you want to shout out, any sponsors, any Instagram handles, any email addresses, any this, any that. You take it away and tell people where they can find you.
Cool. Well, yeah, I put all my work pretty much, and you can keep up to date on all my work on Instagram, which is Ryan Roadkill.
Yeah.
At Ryan Roadkill. I sort of update that more than anything else. So that's probably the freshest, most up to date place to see my work.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, like, I don't really know who to shout out to because there's been so many people, but certainly my wife. And yeah, I'm just happy that, like people want to take an interest in my work like yourself, and that you think it's worthwhile sharing with other people, because like you say, for me, I just sit in my studio all day and I'm just doing what I do. And it's hard to like see outside of that. So yeah, no, I just appreciate that, people take an interest in my work. And for people like Sideburn magazine, that's like, if you are into motorcycles, like you should definitely check it out, because they've been like a huge supporter of my work like throughout my career. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, look, for me specifically, I think it would be really cool if you were able to take a step back and just have a look at the work that you've achieved and the impact that you've achieved on the community. And I think these conversations are really, I'm entirely selfish, right? These conversations are really interesting to me specifically because I get to see inside the mind of an artist, frankly. And I think that artists specifically are one of the most interesting people just because of the life that they lead and how generally insular they are and sort of I just find them fascinating. So thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, thank you. It's been great, man. Like, and the time's flown by, to be honest. When you said it'd been on an hour and a half, didn't realize, but yeah, no, it was great. It's been good.
All right, mate. Well, look, I will catch you soon. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, man.